Hi everyone, my name is Alicia and I welcome you to this Thursday noon hour that is devoted to the conversation about construction of compact homes and construction of ADUs, also known as accessory dwelling units, granny units, guest houses. I've recently heard the terms garden cottage and coach house. So the number of synonyms is growing, but we're still talking about something that you can build in your backyard. And we have two guest speakers today. We have Lindsay and Zayn here. And I think it's quite fitting that we end the whole May series with green building methods in construction. And for those who are with us for the first time, we usually try to go in steps. We start with what is an ADU, then we move on to the planning, and then we move on to how to finance it, and then we move on to construction. So today, because it's still number 5 already, we'll start straight on from financing and building. You can see the previous session on the website, and I'll put it into the chat. A bit of the housekeeping: the chat can be used as a way to ask questions, as a way to exchange information about each other, and anything that you need to make sure you understand correctly, it's totally okay to ask in the chat. I'm just thinking if there is anything else I've forgotten, but well, if there is, you'll tell me. Lindsay, maybe we'll start with you, because we know that you're wearing a couple of hats, and one of them is actually working as a mortgage broker, which brings us to the step of financing. So I'll just start with you. I know also that you used to be a general contractor. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and how you've moved from general contractor role into a broker role?
Sure. I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. And I've been here in the Bay Area for over 20 years now. I came here by way of being a professional sailor and morphed into starting my own bookkeeping company. And then I met my husband not too long after and dove into construction. I have really had a passion for architecture and design my entire life. And we just really loved building a business together. So we kind of took a mom and pop into a multi-million-dollar firm. But, 13 or 14 years later, we were pretty exhausted, and I had always wanted to get my broker's license. So that I did. I set about that about 2 years ago, joined Searchlight Lending, but I wanted to keep my finger in construction. But I'm tremendously passionate about being able to build greener and better, solving the affordable housing crisis and providing a much better product. And I think there's a lot of place for a lot of different prefab designs, but I am pushing SIP panels, which are structurally insulated panels. But there are a lot of other technologies out there that are also great, and we can talk about that as well. But that's kind of how I joined Green Galaxy Builders. I firmly believe in this technology. It's been around for about 50 years, but the price point couldn't match traditional stick frame construction, and now it does. So there's a major conversation to be had about these new ways to build, which really are a no-brainer. They're cheaper, faster, greener, stronger, better. It just takes everybody to kind of shift into a new mindset.
Before we dive into your presentation, what kind of project did you have when you were building? Like, was it residential, was it commercial, or was it?
It was mainly residential. We did a little bit of commercial, but I'd say 90 to 95% residential. We did do some ground up construction, though it's not as common in the Bay Area, but we did do some, and then a lot of major remodels and additions.
Okay, so why don't I just start sharing your presentation so that you can show what SIP is, and please take us through this SIP abbreviation as well, because we have a new meaning of it right now.
We sure do. I know, it's kind of
it's funny. I'm
messed
looking
up my
it certainly does. I'm looking at my daughter the other day. She holds a cup which says something about zips, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what a double meaning here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing because it's easier to remember. It's a mouthful. SIPS, again, is structurally insulated panel. But yeah, I think that's good. Alessia, let's get into...
Yeah, just...
Sorry, talking to my son. I can't right now.
Yeah, that's what working from home means.
Right?
But lucky is when we don't see my dog, because I've started locking the door because she's learned how to open it. Believe it or not. Okay.
So I really like starting with this photo just because one of the many benefits is I think this is going to bring on a new workforce. We've got a really great workforce coming on, but rightly so, nobody wants to be out in the hot sun swinging hammers. And there are so many benefits to be able to create homes within a factory. It's so much more manageable and cost effective, waste effective. And this younger generation, they want tech jobs. They want cool jobs that are going to be involved with AI. And I really think that homes are going to start being built like cars in a factory. And it again, just makes the process smoother and faster. So that's kind of why I start there. Here's just a kind of a sample picture of these panels. You can see it's kind of a sandwiched core, and I'll get into that a little bit further, but they literally click together like Lincoln Logs or Lego, less people to install, and your walls are up super fast. So many benefits, but I think this kind of gives you a general picture of what these things are. So SIPs are a type 5 building product. So you can use them for residential and commercial up to 5 stories. They, again, go up 60% faster than traditional stick frame construction. That is tremendous. They're more energy efficient. They are made of a recyclable, non-off-gassing, no VOC, no CFC material. They are super insulative, and there's no off-gassing within the house or to the exterior as well. It's a really amazing product, and so let me go into a couple more slides, Alessia, and we'll kind of, this just gives you an idea of kind of the applications of what we can build: schools, large commercial buildings, homes. And next slide, please. This is a general overview of kind of what they're made of. So the outside material is what's called OSB, which is oriented strand board. It looks like plywood, but it has what's called shear, which provides structure to the building. So these are lighter, but 250% stronger. So it's kind of it's sometimes even harder for, hard for engineers to get their mind around how you can actually lessen the amount of engineering that goes into these. And so there's cost savings throughout the course of the whole project. In between this OSB is a rigid foam core. It's called EPS, or expanded polystyrene. I know styrene sounds like an awful word, but this is a different product than your standard polystyrene. It is non-off-gassing, no VOCs, no CFCs, and it is recyclable. I hope you're not recycling your home anytime soon, but you can recycle it. So I think that's really important. And next slide.
Next slide is your favorite one, I think.
This is a little video of how the panels go together, filmed by my 8-year-old son, Charlie. And so as you can see, they literally click together. They are much thicker than the model shows. They come in different thicknesses, but for the purpose of this model, they're about 2 inches thick. And we can talk about the different thicknesses of the panels in a little bit here. Okay, thank you. And so the pieces are kind of coming together just like this. They can be used for floors, walls, and roof system. So there's no limit to how they're used within your building envelope, meaning you can do a concrete floor, but you don't have to. You can use them for all wall surfaces. And as you can see, there are unlimited design possibilities. We can do curved, we can do straight, we can do traditional, and we can do modern. So we can even take an existing set of plans and convert it to a SIPS project without compromising the design. Here's a couple of examples of commercial applications. And on the left-hand side, you can see on the commercial building, you could see the cool clear story, the big kind of roof system on the left picture that is really popular in designs these days, both in commercial and residential applications. I know that the homes, the kind of farmhouse look with the black windows and everything is super popular right now. So these are a couple of more examples of some other SIP projects. And we've got so many different homes and examples throughout North America where we ship nationally with these panels. We're doing it across America. This is an award-winning multifamily building that my colleague has won 3 separate awards for. The 2020 Green Building Home of the Year, the National Association of Home Builders Multifamily Award winner, and the Structurally Insulated Panel Association Building Excellence Award. It's a really fantastic building on so many levels and super energy efficient. So this is down in Palo Alto, and we really hope that this is going to become more of a mainstream thing, and we'll see more and more projects like this. This went up again 60% faster than it would have been if it was a regular stick frame construction. ADUs, or backyard homes. In Canada, we call them bunkies. So many different terms are a great way to increase the value of your home, solve for creating an income stream, solving for a family member that needs housing. It's, again, also a win-win. There's a lot of us in this industry that are trying to create a one-stop shop for the permitting process, whereby some of these plans become from different vendors, because there's room for everybody, right? There's really, really good ADU companies out there. And if we can get some of their designs pre-approved so that if Mrs. or Mr. homeowner comes to their building department and says, I want to build a mighty building, or I want to build this home, and it's GGB, Green Galaxy Builders, not only is the permitting less expensive, but it needs to go through kind of an expedited process. They're kind of pre-approved designs. They know that they're tried and true. So how do you kind of create that across the board statewide? And there's a lot of plans in place to kind of make that happen. And again, with my last point there are a lot of laws that have already been passed. January 1st really pushed the envelope as far as making it so much easier for homeowners to build with regards to the building process, the permitting process, and what you can and cannot do. So a lot of people are curious about how to finance these, because there is and isn't an independent option. The best way to really build an ADU is by using the existing equity in your home, doing a HELOC or refinancing. A really good budgetary number for an ADU is about $200,000. You're not going to build an ADU for 90 grand. You can go a lot higher than that. You may beat that number a little bit, but that's a really solid figure. And that's not my opinion. This is, everyone I talk to in the industry agrees that that is roughly the cost for a 300 to 700 square foot home, tiny home. You are still adding every single thing that a home needs with this ADU, right? There's nothing you're leaving out. It's just a smaller home, but everything that goes into building a home needs to go into that ADU. So I know sometimes you see like these kit homes and they're super cheap. It's like, well, that's just the home. There's no foundation, there's no hookup, like there's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, there are options out there for financing, and there are, depending on your situation. So I'd be happy to speak to everybody that is interested specifically about their scenario. One great thing about the company I work for, Searchlight Lending, and working with an independent broker, we're not affiliated with any bank. We're affiliated with hundreds of different lenders, and with one application and one credit check, an independent broker who's usually right in your own backyard can shop for you, is shopping for the best deal and getting the best rates. If you go into bank number X down on the corner, you're beholden to them, their rates, their fees, and you don't really know if you're getting a competitive edge. An independent broker normally can beat those rates. I don't I don't have much overhead. I work from home. So we usually are pretty competitive when it comes there. So just to push what an independent broker is versus going to a bank. And then with Searchlight Lending, we do all loan products. We do residential, commercial, construction, private money, reverse mortgages. I've been helping tons of people with small business, the PPP loans, which I was really happy to be successful with a lot of my clients. So that's kind of the gist on financing. The best way to get that money to build would be to either refinance. Rates are super low right now, doing a HELOC or what's called a home equity line of credit. And then there are other options. There is private money, and private money, there's something to be said about private money. The rates do tend to be higher, but if you're building modular, if you're building with SIPs, you're building so much faster. And so if you crunch the numbers, you see that you may be paying a higher rate, but you're paying it for a lot less time than you would normally. So I hope that generates some conversation here and gives you guys kind of some general color on what's out there and what's available.
Lindsay, I'll ask one question now, and then while Zayn is talking, I would like you to check the chat because there are a lot of questions about zips, and maybe in the end, during the Q&A, you could kind of go through these questions and help people understand better, okay? And my question is the one that I actually owe to somebody who asked us this question last week, and that's when people are thinking of buying the home that does not have an ADU yet, what is the best strategy when they're talking mortgage? Do they roll the future cost of the construction into the mortgage? Like what scenarios do you see there?
Well, if you're looking at a home that already has some sort of set of plans or pre-approval process, there can be some negotiations there. If the previous homeowner has, an approved, maybe a permit ready, approved set of plans, or can offer that can be in the negotiation process. But if you're purchasing a home where the seller says, hey, you can add an ADU in the backyard, it's really on the future buyer to me. I don't really think there's any sort of loan product where, unless it's private money somehow, really the best way to do it is to have a home equity line of credit once your mortgage is set, once you've made your purchase.
So you haven't seen any solutions that can allow you, say, I'm buying a home in Santa Clara for 1.5 million, but I need 200 more to add on and I need an ADU. So you don't see any way to get a mortgage for actual 1.7.
It's possible, but it would not be a conventional loan product. So depending on your qualifications, we can certainly look, talk, and shop around with various lenders. I think one really important point to make about the lending world is, just like there are those in construction and building that are embracing these new technologies and others that aren't, it's the same with the lending world. There are those banks and lenders that are embracing pre-fab and those that are like, no way. So I've been spending a lot of time kind of amassing my group of lenders that get it and want to lend to this. Right now, Alessia, if we had been having this conversation a couple of months ago before COVID, it would have been a really different conversation because things were opening up more and more and more, and then everything just shut. So as the days and weeks go by, I'm seeing more and more lenders relax their qualifications. Things are coming back online, but it's slow and everybody's a little hesitant. So it really, again, is going to depend on that specific borrower, homeowner, buyer, what their financial situation is, and how we might be able to create a loan product for them. But that's, again, the great thing about using an independent broker is that if anybody can do it, somebody that can do all loan products is going to be able to see if it's possible. If they can't do it, no one will.
And I think it's the answer that we all have hard time accepting. But it's the same answer when you ask, like, how long will it take me to build in a year? How much will it cost me to get utilities? And the answer is always, it depends. And that's the unfortunate truth, right? And I think part of the educating homeowners is actually it does depend. It does depend on you, on your credit story, on your site, on your personal preferences, etc.
Totally. Yeah. And one thing to note that we can kind of have a bit more understanding of is the time frame. It is 60% faster than traditional construction. And for an ADU, I think what's really most important is we can get walls up, and going from a flat lot to, it's not finished. You're looking at a plywood little shell, but it's a house in 1 to 2 days. So that's hugely significant. Also from a security standpoint, being able to tighten up your envelope at the end of a construction day, but you don't see homes of any size going up that quickly with traditional methods.
Okay, thank you very much, Lindsay. There is several questions that I see about Zips in the chat. And in the meantime, Zayn, it's over to you. We'd love to know first who you are. How come you are in construction?
I mean, that's a very interesting story. It's all about, I actually wanted to build off what you guys were last saying, about how a lot of things just depend. And, that's kind of the beauty of working with different types of prefab builders and different types of prefab elements, is it eliminates a lot more of those uncertainties. So like when you're working with full modular building, your building costs a set. That is because you're buying it as a material. The parts that are less and less confusing are going to be the next step. So I'll go more into it as we go on about our products and what we do. So everyone, my name is Zayn. I'm an entitlements project manager, and how I kind of describe what I've been doing for the last 6 years now is...
That's a long title as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Entitlements and what?
Land use entitlements project manager, because entitlements is a term for just, having something entitled, but what we're doing is land use entitlements. How I like to call it, though, is I get your pre-construction work done. And that's what I've been doing for about the last 6 years. So everything from working with your designs, drafting the site-specific documents, to getting permits together for construction. Now, since working with Mighty Buildings, though, we've gone a step further and going for a full turnkey solution, where that means we're working from the moment we get your design together to the moment that the building is installed onto your site. And before we get into anything too much, I kind of wanted to show a video.
Yeah.
And how we do it. And I was very excited with Lindsay's very first slide, because it actually looks, like our factory. There we go. So as we can see, the one unique thing about Mighty Buildings is we actually implement 3D printing technology to kind of increase our speed of building specific components for our pre-modules. But a lot of what Lindsay was saying about taking a lot of the elements that we would normally do on site in the hot sun with hammers, and then being able to very specific technical work and building it offsite within a facility, transporting the units onto site, and then just installing so they're quickly assembled and finished once we get there. So this is kind of just a video of us putting it together in our facility, getting it ready to go to site for final completion, and then ended up having only about a month and a half of time of people on their site, and that's including time for the foundation to cure, so actual completion. So the very big, appeal of using module is that we're able to kind of eliminate a lot of the time that you're going to be spending on your site, which anyone who's done construction understands that it's very complicated, dusty, messy, and just not a fun thing to have in your backyard all day for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on the size of the project you're doing. There are some constraints, though, as you can probably tell from this section right now, where we need heavy machinery generally to transport these large pieces into the backyard, which is where things like SIP panels come very, very in handy, where you're able to then bring pieces into the backyard and then start assembling to be able to also use prefab elements. I'm going to stop sharing now. Also use prefab elements, but be able to then create a space that, within without the accessibility issues that you normally have with modules. You know, as we've been moving towards bigger and bigger sized units, we actually have taken a lot of, you know, inspiration from SIP panels and tried to build it into the next variation of what that is. I have one more photo I wanted to share. So what we think the next step from SIP panel is, because SIP is, as mentioned before, your structural and insulation layer. For our next set of units, which are going to be larger, we decided to try to create a one and done panel. So it ends up being a finished material from the outside to interior with all your insulation and structural layers with inside the panel. So it works similar to working with Legos, as I like to explain it. So that's just a quick overview of like what we do. Just to kind of get a little bit more into details of it. As we try to produce a turnkey solution for people, we're trying to make it so it's simpler so that way you don't end up having to deal with as much people on your site or going for multiple conversations with multiple contractors, consultants, such as your architect, structural engineer, and all of those. We're trying to make it so it's very straightforward for people. So you just have to come to one project manager. They have an understanding of your project from start to finish. And then as things approach your actual construction day, we're able to give you a good outline of, hey, this is when your unit will be delivered. This is when it's going to be completed in a very tight and short timeline. You know, a normal construction process could range anywhere from 6 to even beyond a year, depending on the permitting process of the area. We try to implement, as Lindsay mentioned earlier, the pre-approval programs that are here in the state of California to help eliminate a lot of those permit delays. So all of our designs are actually through the Factory Built Housing Program of California, which is through the Housing Community Department. That means that the building itself has been pre-approved, reviewed, and is inspected in our factory, opposed to by the local jurisdiction of wherever you're located. With that, you end up saving time in your permitting, in some cases even money, depending on if it's based off evaluation. And then when you actually go for inspection, my favorite part is there's only really 2 or 3 inspections on your site. You have your foundation and then final inspection and you're done. And that's kind of the beauty of working with something that's modular and like that. Our next iterations of the products, which will end up being panelized, will end up having a little bit more on-site responsibilities because, you know, as similar with SIP panels, because the construction and assembly is happening on site, there will still need to be on-site inspections happening for those processes. So they will be a little bit more invasive, which is what we try to avoid with modules. But as I mentioned, you end up not having the problems of needing heavy machinery, which then allows, especially in the accessory dwelling unit market, really limits a lot of people on using module design and module construction. So, you know, Lindsay actually went through a lot of just the basic ADU stuff I was going to talk about. So if anyone has any direct questions, I'd be happy to kind of answer them.
Well, first of all, you have to tell us more about Mighty Buildings because not everybody's familiar with it as Lindsay is. So how many people in the company are Russian?
Quite a few, actually. We're originally a Russian company with the technology. So how I like to joke around is, you know, 3D printing, a lot of times we see in small scale. So the technology actually started, I just lost my light, give me a second, how to move. The technology actually started as a toy, as a lot of things, very interesting adventures start, for building small sculptures, you know, with a pen. And then they tried to expand it to a larger and larger size. Then we were able to then build larger and larger components. Eventually, we were trying to figure out how to implement this technology into you know, a market that would really appreciate it and get great value for it. And we decided that the construction industry is something that really hasn't had that much changes in how we build things in the last 100 years. You know, we have had some really cool innovations with SIP panels and some, you know, module building. But for the most part, we're still building things out of stick frames, you know, with hammers and nails. So we were trying to take, you know, an automation piece towards that. And with that, we ended up designing quite a few different pre-approved designs. So up here, I'm showing is our Mighty House products, which are our larger designs that were going to come as a panelized solution, just because of the limitations of modules. But as we move forward, but these are some of the things that we currently produce. We have our Mighty Studio, which is a small 350 square foot unit that fits almost on any site. It's a very great starting product for anyone who wants something that just is able to work very easily. How I like to call it is the straight plug and play, is it's 100% completed as a module. when it comes to your site. So as soon as it's installed, we can have the final inspection within that week, and then you can move in. As we get bigger, you end up working with larger and larger modules or multiple modules. So we end up having 1-bedroom units, which are multiple modules connected. And then as well as we get larger into 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units as well, or 3-bedroom units as well. The cool thing, as I mentioned before, though, is that we end up using a lot of our 3D printing technology to be able to produce these sites instead of just working with traditional build. And then we end up taking a lot of, just want to keep visuals going. And we end up taking a lot of, steel and different and stronger types of design and building components to try and create a more standard set that can easily be assembled in our factory. And then a lot of pre-built components, such as pre-fab bathroom pods, which allow for very quick mechanical, electrical, and plumbing installations on site. The idea is to really just simplify the process as much as possible and implement a lot of new technology to end up doing it.
So right now you've got several models, so to say.
Yeah, so we have 3 models that are pre-approved, and within those 3 models, 2 of them are non-symmetrical. So with those 2 non-symmetricals, we actually have the mirrored image versions of them pre-approved. So that way, wherever the site is, we're able to match the design to how you want windows orientated or the curve section, because the curve is a very unique part of our architecture design. A big part of that is because with 3D printing, we're able to do full freeform architecture. So we're able to go any shape or design, and we're actually implementing this into some sculptures that we're doing for parks throughout the Bay Area. As soon as those are getting installed, I'll be happy to share where they are located, and it'll be all over our social media pages, I'm sure.
I know you've talked about the building envelope being more tight with zips and modules than in the usual stick-built construction. Mm-hmm. And we have this blower door test that can give you the numbers, right? Can you go into the details, like how does that happen? Why is it more tight?
Sure. Well, standard insulation is usually called batt insulation, whether you're using the pink fiberglass stuff or denim or whatever. And that stuff is, well, it can sag over time. Animals can get inside. It does not provide a full, compact, completely filled cavity within your walls. The EPS, this is like a foam core. There's no way for it to sag or, melt or anything. So that said, the panels are really tight together. So your building envelope, once assembled, is super tight. A lot of air does not escape. So your ambient inside temperature is not only retained for longer, but if you've got like a HEPA filter on your HVAC system, you can create an indoor air quality that's really unparalleled to anything else. So it just provides basically, like if you go to like a Rite Aid and you buy one of those like styrofoam coolers, it's the same principle. It's a different material, but it's the same insulative quality where we can actually take these panels and build like hospital refrigeration units out of them. There are those that are like up to 11.5 inches thick. So it just creates not only good energy efficiency, but again, what's called R value. Insulation gets an R value depending on how insulative it is. And the SIPs are way above and beyond any sort of batt material.
But as far as I understand, there are also different SIP manufacturers, and not everybody is using the same infill as the one you're talking about. Is that
absolutely
correct?
Absolutely. There's a lot of different products out there. I purposely partnered with Green Galaxy Builders because they receive wholesale pricing and have a partnership with Premier SIPs, which are based up in Washington State. So they are made and manufactured here in the States. To me, they're kind of the Ferrari or Mercedes-Benz of SIPs. I did a lot of research on the products out there. There are some really good ones. There's some really, really crummy ones that don't have any structural value and don't have a lot of insulation. So you do need to do your research. But again, Premier SIPs is one of the largest in the industry. They've done the most research and development. And so I think you're right, Alessia. You do need to be an informed consumer and make sure that you're picking a product that's really going to give you all of the benefits that SIPs can.
Out of 10 builders, how many do you think will know how to build with SIPs?
I'm working on that all the time. Most of the builders I work with are tooled up, as they say, to do both. They can do stick frame, of course, still, and then they also do SIPs when and if called upon. I think most builders are going to be in that realm until there is really a major switch over to something different. I'd say out of 10, maybe 2 or 3. So not that many. So, a builder or an architect really can gain an edge over their competition by, utilizing greener methods. And if it's cheaper, they may be able to help their clients build cheaper as well.
And like an attached ADU with SIPs, if the main house is done traditionally?
You can tie in to your existing stick frame conditions. So you could do like an addition onto your home. It's not easy, it's not advisable, but it's certainly possible. I said it's not easy, but tying into existing conditions, I should disclose, no matter how you're doing it, is not easy. When you're trying to tie into an older home that may have been built in the 50s or 60s, when you open things up, there may be things that don't meet code. So it's difficult to tie in I'm sorry, I just wanted to disclose that.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand the process, because with the usual new development, you go from floor plan to the architect and the structural engineering. Is it any different with SIPs? Do you still go to the local structural engineer, or does the builder do it for you in the factory? How does it work?
Good question. We're learning, if you want a custom design, you definitely need to work with a building design team. There are plan sets that exist out there. So if you don't need to reinvent the wheel, you don't need to go with something custom. I think it's going to depend on the borrower and their design, but a lot of the times you can say, I want that floor plan, but you will need a design team to create, to do your civil engineering. You're going to need someone to adjust that for your lot. So you do need a design team, but a lot of these ADU companies like Mighty Buildings and Green Galaxy, we will help the homeowner with that process and help expedite it, just because especially for an ADU, there's really not a need to start really from scratch, if you know what I mean. I think building a custom home is one thing, but building an ADU, I think your average homeowner is a bit more relaxed when it comes to the overall look, and would be more accepting of picking a design online. There's plenty of home set plans that you can find on the internet.
And I think on your website, you can actually go through a sort of Tesla-like process, picking things about the home. What does the end price include?
So the pricing of all of our units are standard pricing, unless you end up going for, upgraded appliances or a custom appliance set, which we do offer, but they come as, custom conversations. There's no set pricing for that. It kind of depends on what you want. So our smallest unit starts at $99,000, but as you get larger, it doesn't get that much more expensive. I really liked what Lindsay was saying initially is a lot of what you're building is going to be the same. You still need your plumbing, your electrical, no matter what size of unit you are. So, as you get bigger, the price difference doesn't change that much. So our next step up is at $135,000. And that's only double the size of the smallest unit. So you'd see you're paying only about 30% more money and getting double the size. And the eventual last one is double the cost or 4 times the size. So when you're working with those different choices, you're kind of just trying to figure out what's best for your site. And then, as I mentioned before, since we're all pre-approved through the factory built housing program, you end up having to save a lot of time and effort on the additional work that you would need to get on for your site. You still need to engage with some type of draftsperson, in some areas a licensed architect, to be able to get your site plan together, and then a structural engineer to do a structural plan for your foundation. But that's really it. Like I love going to permits with pre-approved plan sets, because your normal plan set is an inch or two thick, and then mine now is 5 pages. So it really saves a lot of time and effort.
That's a good point, actually. How many cities do you have these pre-approved plans with right now?
So there are 2 different types of pre-approved sets. One is the master planning, which is through a local jurisdiction, which San Jose is one of the cities that has master plans. We're not in any master plan cities yet. We plan to be within San Jose's this year. But then the other program is a statewide program, which is the factory built housing program through the Housing Community Department, which is actually the HCD is actually the department that runs all of the ADU laws and is the enforcement agency for local jurisdictions to follow the ADU requirements. We're in that. So that means our plan set is technically pre-approved for the entire state of California. So and we have projects from San Jose to San Diego currently. And too many calendars open. And with that, you're using the same plan set that's been pre-approved for all of them. All we have to do is get for the local zoning regulations. So, setbacks, which have been standardized this year. So really it's mainly open space requirements and minimum separation between structures is pretty much all we're taking care of nowadays, which really helps simplify the process a lot for people. Because how I like to say is, if it fits, it most likely can work now.
Yeah, true. But I think there's also a very important distinction, because people are looking for the less expensive solution, and they're often looking at manufactured homes without knowing this distinction about federal laws and California state laws. Can you go into this tiny little detail?
Yeah, I mean, it's a detail I talk about a lot trying to explain people. I actually get shivers when I hear manufactured homes now. So the difference is that manufactured homes are managed by HUD, which is a federal program, which means they're open for the entire nation. But because of that, they're actually due to slightly less, I won't want to say restrictive, but let's say strict regulations. So they're they're made for being temporary housing. They're not actually made for long-term housing from the majority of the time. Well, in some cases, they can have very nice manufactured homes that are made for permanent housing. It's not a requirement for them. Our plan sets through the factory built housing program, and each state has its own similar thing as factory built housing. Those are managed through the state, which means they have to be taken care of by the California Building Code, which anyone who knows anything about building in the US knows we're probably the most, heavily code-dependent state out of the entire US. Maybe only New York can compare to us, honestly.
With one question, Cal Green?
Yeah, Cal Green everywhere through. Like we have to comply with Title 24, Title 25, and everything up. Essentially, if it's the same as going through a building anywhere else in the state, through a custom build, they do the same. Honestly, it's a little bit more scrutinized because it's for the entire state. It depends on which.
I know it depends.
And the big one I'm just saying is because if you're in the Coastal Commission's still not really moving that fast right now. But most cities have actually opened up permitting again. It's just remote submittals, so it really hasn't slowed down for most places now. It was a little different in March and April, but at the beginning of May, all construction was allowed to continue in California. So with that, most of the cities actually reopened their doors if they weren't already opened in a remote sense. So
I'm not letting you off the hook. Okay, I've got a permit. When will I get you building?
If you have the permit, and you can get the building within a month. It takes us about 2 weeks to produce our smallest one, and about 4 to 5 to build our largest. So it takes about 3 weeks for your foundation to cure. So it's all perfect timing right there.
Okay.
We say so about 3 to 6 months total wrap up project for most jurisdictions.
Say it again.
For permits, from full turnkey solution, we see usually it's about 3 to 6 months. For most jurisdictions, unless you have special zoning or in somewhere that's especially difficult.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. It was great to see you both, and thank you very much for your time. And if anyone is interested in green building and financing rolled into 1 hour conversation, hope to see you next week. Thank you.